Hey everyone, it's Raden, and today we've got another discussion video, and I'm very happy for this one because I've brought in two very good VGC players, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves with this first question. So not only your name, but also like what background in Pokemon do you have, especially pertaining to VGC. So Aaron.
All right. Who wants to? Aaron, do you want to go first, or should I go?
Yeah, I can go first. So basically, yeah, I've been playing VGC since its first year back in 08. My name's Aaron Zheng. I go by Cybertron. I run a YouTube channel, and I was actually a commentator for US Nationals and Worlds this last season, but I've been playing since 08, and I've competed in 6 World Championships, qualified for 7, won a bunch of regionals and nationals, and got 3rd at Worlds back in 2013. And I am planning on competing fully in 2017, but that might change as the season goes along.
Alright, and I'm Ian McLaughlin, also known as Raikoo or Pocky on Twitter. I've been playing since 2011, and I qualified for Worlds 6 times, I believe. I got 2nd in Worlds 2011, and then third or 4th, top 4 in 2014 in juniors and seniors respectively, and also won 2 regionals recently. I won Kansas regionals in 2016, and then also Florida regionals a month ago, also in the 2016 format.
All right. Good to know. Well, thank goodness VGC17 is now over. So, to start off VGC17, because this is still in the first week, we've had it on Showdown now for a few days. We've had Battle Spot live for, again, a few days. What are some Pokemon or cores that you see as current driving threats or Pokemon to keep in mind in VGC17?
I've seen a lot of sort of defensive sort of cores, stuff like Arcanine, Celesteela. I don't know how to pronounce that. Celesteela. You get my point.
Yeah.
What else is there on there? Usually Marowak. It's a really potent defensive while still having pretty decent offensive capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I've
Gyarados.
seen. Yeah, for sure.
Just double intimidate, along with the strong steel type. Marowak with the lightning rod and also very strong offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've been looking at most is the Ultra Beasts and the Tapus and how people have been building around those. I think all 4 of the Tapus are pretty viable. Tapu Lele is I think really strong offensively, and terrain's giving certain typings extra offensive attacking or damage is really big too. So I think Tapu Bulu is really cool actually. It's something that I think people are maybe counting out a little bit more than they should because it's really strong with the stab grass type attacks that it has access to. And of course Tapu Koko, pairs naturally with a lot of electric type Pokemon. I think Xurkitree is really cool too. And I think Trick Room, there's always already been a bunch of Trick Room options explored with Porygon 2 and Oranguru, especially those 2 as Trick Room users. But obviously in the beginning of the format typically is pretty hyper offensive, and a lot of the teams are just kind of taking either really bulky Pokemon or really strong Pokemon and just putting them together and going for quick damage output.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you've said. So, just real quick, we've mentioned the Tapus, and they are without question 4 of the most prominent Pokemon. Which of the Tapus do you guys feel is the one to watch out for the most, or that people are going to be most concerned about this season?
I feel like Tapu Lele is probably the strongest and most well-rounded out of all of them. Mm-hmm. It has the priority blocking terrain, and also has very strong offensive capabilities while also not being really frail. It can take a couple hits and deal pretty good damage out in return.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree
spread with Dazzling Gleam and Psychic. Fairy isn't that bad offensively. There's only really Steel types that's to worry about. Usually you have a Marowak or something backing it up, like a Garchomp as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'd also say Lele. I think Coco, once we saw its stats, it's really speedy, but offensive-wise, it doesn't do as much. But it still supports teams really well. And honestly, I think all 4 of them will be relevant this season. Beanie probably the least, if I had to guess, out of the 4. Like, I'd probably play Lele first, Coco second, Bulu, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't. It's like, I don't think anyone should be counting them out because inherently just their abilities and the terrains give you a lot of creativity and setup potential, and they all have pretty unique kind of spreads as well. But I definitely would put Lele on top.
Yeah, and I guess while we're on Pokemon and changes, because, I mean, we haven't really seen terrains before, even though we had 3 of them back in Gen 6, and now they're all of a sudden important. So there are plenty of status moves that we've seen get large nerfs, such as Thunder, Swagger Wave, and Dark Void. And we've also seen other things get buffs. We've seen 4 Pokemon get brand new weather abilities, namely Pelipper, Torkoal, Vanillux, and Gigalith. So how do you think these changes will affect the metagame?
I feel like part of it's going to make the meta more defensive. I don't know how to explain why, but I feel like with less Swagger and less Dark Void, well, no Dark Void at all now, there's not going to be as much like strategies relying on setup like Smeargle Xerneas back in 2016. I've been using Smeargle and Xurkitree a little bit with Tail Glow, and I think it's pretty neat, but without like Dark Void, and it's also no Xerneas at all. It just isn't as strong as Smeargle Xerneas because it lacks the bulk and spread and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, all in all, I think, most of the changes, if not all of them, I thought were pretty cool and positive, and I think it would just make the game more balanced and less RNG reliant, which is always good.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree with what Ian said about kind of just defensive. I think, like, with Mega Evolutions also not being part of the format, like, that's a big deal. Like, the last, 2014, 15 were very Mega-based formats, obviously, because you had such strong ones like Kangaskhan, Mawile, Charizard, Gardevoir. And then, of course, last year was all these super strong Pokemon with the restricted legendaries. So it's kind of funny playing this year because it's, it kind of feels like the older days, like 2012 or 2013, where a lot of strong Pokemon, their overall typings or stats aren't even that good, but like they work for a specific reason. And this year, more than ever, it feels like almost anything can be relevant if you just kind of build properly around it. And there are just so many strategies, but I'm really glad they made a lot of the changes they did. I wish they adjusted freeze a little bit because I'm kind of surprised that's still the exact same from what I've seen so far. But other than that, positive changes, and yeah, I think it'll result in a less RNG reliant format and more kind of defensive format, like Ian said.
Out of curiosity, were you wanting a freeze buff or a freeze nerf, Aaron?
It just less randomized. Like, right, it's like 20% for any given turn and like no limit to it. I think just like it ruins games really, really badly. Like if you get an Ice Beam, and you just don't on ball for like even more than one turn, like it could just be really bad. So either something to let you know, maybe after 2 turns I'll on ball for sure, or something where the odds will increase. Like I think those would have been good, but instead they didn't address it. And Ice Beam is always obviously a common move, so that's concerning. It's not the end of the world, but yeah.
Yeah. So on this topic of changes, what are some other changes that maybe I haven't brought up so far, but you think will help alter the VGC17 metagame, and especially how it differs from previous years?
You already mentioned the terrains, but I think they're just pretty important this format, because I've watched a lot of games on Showdown and also played quite a bit myself, and just not keeping track of the terrains and letting it mess with you can really turn the tide of a game. Like, I've seen some games where people are like, oh, I'm gonna put this Pokemon to sleep with my, what's that new mushroom thing called?
We don't,
something.
Sheenotic or something? I'll put a picture
like
on
that.
screen and someone will
them,
correct us.
They have Mystery Terrain up and then they can't spore, so they just wasted a turn instead of doing something.
I think that
or
will...
even just like fake outing or extreme speeding or anything.
Yeah.
Even like on their own side, like some person tried to extreme speed my boosted Xurkitree, but that was at +1 speed. It was at like 20% HP, but they had their own psychic terrain nullifying that, so it really messed with them. So I think terrains are just a really big thing to watch out for and keep track of.
Yeah,
and they definitely were in the last format.
Yeah, I know, like, playing on Showdown, I've seen people, and me personally, I've done it too, where it's like, I forget that the terrains affect everyone, so I'll like, use a fake out, or
Yeah.
try to attack with psychic terrain up, and then I'll be like, oh, whip, that's really dumb. Just keeping
Yep.
track of, like, new Pokemon and abilities, I think is just, like, you know, the trickiest thing about learning any new metagame. Like, you know, Lightning Rod Marowak, or Alolan Marowak, that's one of the, I think, bigger Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I've you know, tried some games with that, and sometimes I just completely forget against Lightning Rod. When I first played against it, I was like, oh, you know, you can just Thunderbolt it, right? Like, that should just KO it. And then I saw the whole rod. I was like, okay, now I see why people are using this. So, just like, yeah, I think, like, there's just so many new Pokemon. I think that just by natural, like, typings as well. Like, I'm trying to learn all the new Pokemon, their typings and their speed tiers, because that's, like, something that you should know, you know, obviously, pretty much at the back of your head when you're playing VGC.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of like, oh, it's easy, like everyone takes it for granted, but when you're learning a meta, like it is a little tricky. So I don't know. I've been just playing a fair amount of games and watching games like Ian just to, you know, understand what these Pokemon even do and like what their potential movesets are.
Yeah, I think just keeping track of your own trains and realizing like some of the smaller stuff. Like I tried to Thunder Wave with my Gyarados once to get speed control, but I had my own Marowak out, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, what was another thing that I remembered? It was something kind of silly. Oh well. But just like, oh, some people were like, I remember I faked out like one of their Celestelias or whatever, or spored it with like one of the terrains up that blocked it. And they're like, wait, why were you able to spore and put my Pokemon to sleep? But then they realized that, oh, it's a flying type, it can't be affected by the terrains.
Yeah, and that is something I'm kind of curious about, because one thing that I happened to think of today was, do you guys know about the move telekinesis?
I don't know what it does.
So basically, it's kind of a
something about accuracy or something.
it's kind of a weird move, and I think the only Pokemon that we can use that can get it are Alakazam, and that. But what it does is it gives your Pokemon the levitating status, or whatever you target, it gives it the levitating status. But it also means that all moves used against it will hit. So I'm kind of curious if that would mean that you use telekinesis on it, and then all of a sudden you can start slamming it with priority moves in psychic terrain, or you can put it to sleep in electric terrain.
That is kind of interesting. Does it give the levitating status, but doesn't give you an immunity to Earthquake?
It does give you an immunity to Earthquake, so that's
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel like that wouldn't have too big of an impact just because it requires some setup.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's just...
I feel like it could be a neat option.
Yeah. It's just probably something that's going to be a weird niche strategy that could happen. We never know.
Yeah, I think the other factor is definitely Z moves, just because they're really strong. It's kind of like a throwback to gems, and there are actually a lot of setup Z moves that I think people just like haven't been playing around or tested very much. Obviously, it's still like a week, less than a week since the games have come out. But
yeah, it hasn't been a week.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm definitely like paying attention to Z moves as well, because I think there are a lot of cool strategies you can do around them, especially some of the setup ones. Like Destiny Bond is really cool because it's like a follow me as well. So I think those will have a pretty big impact, and it's also a big deal that they can attack through protects and still do some damage.
Yeah, that is something that I've noticed has been saving me a few games, is I can get some sort of Gigavolt Havoc off, and they just can't protect their Celesteela through it, and it may not be a lot, but it's at least something.
Yeah, I think with the Z moves though, you really need to time it well. Like I've been messing around with Z Destiny Bond actually, with like Nasty Plot Ninetales and Tailclothes, or treat like a double setup sort of thing.
Ooh, interesting.
So they have to attack the Gengar after I use Z Destiny Bond, but then sometimes just like it doesn't do anything because I used my Z move, but then they didn't KO it, so it didn't really have the impact I wanted. Like, sure, they attacked it, or didn't attack it, but it just didn't have the impact I wanted. So I feel like it's just maximizing your potential and knowing when to use your Z moves. Because it's not just like a Mega where you can click Mega, evolve on your Kingscon, and it's Mega for the rest of the game, and it's just powerful for the whole game. You need to know when and why to use your Z moves.
Yeah. Definitely see that, like you mentioned, that it is similar to your Mega, because you get only one shot per game.
but it doesn't last the whole game usually, which is why
Yeah.
you need to like just be aware when you're using it. And even though it does go through protect, it's weakened by a lot, so you don't just want to throw it, down whenever you can.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
All right, so you both have been playing, as you stated, for many years each.
Yeah.
So, so far, based on what we've seen of VGC17, is there a format or year that you think that VGC17 is most similar to, and which one is it?
I feel like it'd have to be either. I kind of want to say 2011, but I feel like that'd just be wrong because 2011 was very, very minimal with diversity, what you could use. Because every team had a Terrakion, every team had one of the genies, or if not both.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very limited with some of the stuff. But then I also kind of want to say 2011 or 2012. I mean, 2012 didn't have move tutors, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like 2012 would be the thing I could most relate it to, just because there wasn't move tutors, there wasn't not everything got Icy Wind or Tailwind, which is similar now, because I've seen some stuff that I wanted to, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need some Icy Wind on my Melodic, or Tailwind on this Pokemon. I was like, oh, doesn't get it because it's a move tutor, and we can't transfer Pokemon or anything. So I feel like it's probably close to 2012, because there were gyms back then, but not Megas.
Mm-hmm.
And even though 2012 wasn't a regional decks, I feel like it's still pretty similar, just in the fact that it's going to be pretty defensive, because 2012 wasn't very offensive at all. There wasn't any setups or megas or anything like that, really.
Yeah, given that it's the regional decks, Ian said, it's not really like 2011 at all, since 2011 was extremely limited, because that year, the regional decks was only all the new Pokemon. 2014 is interesting because it was still a very mega-dominated format, so, it's kind of like 2014 in the sense that it's the regional decks is bigger, but I think this year, there's also just a lot more diversity and room for creativity, which I think is promising. And as a result, I would say it's like a combination of 2012 and 2014.
Yep, that's what I agree with that.
All right, interesting. So, we're going to be wrapping up soon, so second to last question. Any tips or tricks that you would like to give to a new player starting in VGC17?
I think one of the most important things just about, not just VGC17, but VGC in general, is just your mindset and your willingness to improve and how you play when you're practicing. You need to be pointing out oh, I did this wrong and I can improve on it by doing this next time. And also just being mindful of what you're doing and how you can fix that sort of stuff.
All right.
When I was at Florida Regionals, even though I won the regional, I still know I made some mistakes in some of my sets and stuff. I remember one of my Swiss losses actually, I did a double protect when I didn't need to. I was trying to install it just to turn a trick room, just because I could. But what my opponent did was he did a desperation move because I was winning in that sense. But he did a desperation move when I double protected, which was skill swapping as a Groudon and then swords dancing with it with Trick Room up against my Groudon Xerneas. So I just couldn't do anything against him after that. So I made an unnecessary double protect that I could have not have done and just won the game regardless. So I think it's picking out stuff like that and knowing when you make mistakes. And just being accepting of your mistakes. Some people are oh, I need to play perfect. I can't make any mistakes, and sometimes that is really harmful because you won't improve or you won't try to make reads at all when you need to. And I think it's one of the biggest things, just mindset. A good example is actually I don't know if you know him. Well, you probably do. Aaron Trailer.
Yep.
His mindset towards the game is really, really great. I was talking to him after Florida Regionals, and he was actually wanting me to win, and I was after Ashton's set, when I played Ashton, it was kind of even though I think it was a good set, part of the things that were just kind of gross with Moody and stuff, and I felt kind of bad about it, and I told Aaron, I won, but I didn't like how the set was, and he was focus on what you did well, which was winning, and I think that's a really good thing, just to focus on what you're doing well, but also knowing what you did wrong to do better next time. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice there from Ian. I mean, I think like you just have to seek to improve, and a lot of players, like I'll see people just like flame people on Showdown if they think their opponent made a dumb move or they get hacks, and it's like that's not gonna help you become a better player. Like that's just not a good way to improve. And so I don't know. For me, it's like playing each game with purpose. Like if you just grind through like 50 games, but you don't take anything away from those 50 games, then there's no point. So playing each game and like really analyzing each game after you played and be like, okay, why exactly did I do what I did? What could I have done better even if I won or if I lost? Is it a loss that, or was there any play that I think I really just didn't do very well, or was it more like it was like reads all the time and my opponent just played really well? Sometimes you have to admit your opponent just played better than you, and that is the case as well. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are also just making content for VGC17. Wolf Glick, the World Champion's been putting out a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
He's been doing stuff as well, and I'll be starting very shortly. So
just me too.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend. I think there are more resources now than there really ever was, and the number of resources out there will really continue to grow. So just look for those, and mentality is really important.
All right. Certainly a lot of great advice. Any other final thoughts before we close out you guys would like to express about VGC17?
Actually, I do kind of want to add something onto the previous thing. I think finding like a buddy or just a friend to like talk through like your games and stuff and just kind of team build or do stuff with is really nice, because it's just like when you're like editing something, you always want to like have someone else proofread it, because you won't always see everything that they might see. They might see something like completely obvious, but it might not be obvious to you, and you might completely miss it. So I think that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Like when I was playing the night before Florida, I was actually playing like 20 games like in a row with just Patrick Smith, like against different matchups, and also like he helped me build my team a lot too. And he helped me like see things that like I didn't actually expect or didn't realize at the time, which actually did help me in one of my matches at Florida. And just like some of the small things like get with my team too. Like I was like, okay, I want to use a bold Xerneas, but then I put like 4 defense in it with like just a couple bit of HP too. And he was like, if you're gonna go bold, you might as well just go full defense. And that's what I did, and actually won my first round because my Xerneas lived a +2 non-spread people aids from a Grotto, and I was like, oh, okay, that bulk really helped out. So I think just having someone else to, see what you're doing and kind of comment on it and stuff is also a pretty good thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you both of you for joining in this discussion. I'll have both of their Twitters or some way you can contact them on the screen, so definitely give them a follow or something. Aaron does YouTube. You've probably... I mean, it's a little known fact at this point. But definitely go check his stuff out. He's got some great stuff in the works, I hear, and I'm really excited for this new season. And
yeah, it's going to be great.
see you guys next time.
See you.
See you.